Are you ready, Hercules?
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I am here with John Carl Pepe and the Pep Talk. Greetings, John.
Greetings, Hercules. Wow, thank you. That was such a wonderful and enthusiastic reading of the title of the show because I love it. I love the title and I love doing this. And I'm so happy that you gave me this opportunity and was bummed that we had to take a month off last week due to various circumstances or last month. But we are back, folks, with the Pep Talk and we are as of now, we are recording. It is just after 9 p.m. Saturday, November 8th. So we're a little off our usual schedule this week. But it is just after 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I make a point of saying that because I am so happy that our guest tonight, our lead guest tonight, was able to work his schedule because of, to me, what would seem like an insurmountable time difference. So we're going to get right into it, folks. We've got a stacked show for you. We might have some surprise guests later on, but I'm really excited to finally sit down, have a nice interview, get to learn about this man and the land that he roams. I've known him for quite some time now, virtually through the interwebs and the inner tubes and such, and we'll get to that a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause straight out of Gibraltar, David J. Diaz.
Yo, what's up, John? How are you doing?
I'm good, David. How are you? How are you?
Well, it's 3 a.m., so not doing too badly though, I must
I
say.
I really, really appreciate that. So, David,
Happy to hear.
right off the bat, I want to fulfill the edutainment requirement of our show here. So, for a lot of people who probably don't even know, like basically, I know three things about Gibraltar. Okay,
Okay.
first thing I know is there's a rock, it's a pretty damn big rock. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, I also know it's not Australia and it's not New Zealand. So,
But we do
educate
have
us.
something in common with them.
Yeah, besides the cool accents.
Well, we're British too, so yeah. There
Right.
you
Right.
go.
All under the
Well, we were
United
part of
Kingdom.
the Commonwealth, yeah.
Yeah, the Commonwealth. Right, right. So really briefly, before we get into you and what you do, tell us a little bit about Gibraltar, what it's like growing up there, what would, if someone were to go to Gibraltar, what could they expect? I want to say it's probably not too much different than any other metropolitan area.
No, I mean, with Gibraltar, I think it's a very multicultural ambience all around when it comes to not just people or anything else, but there's all of these ethnicities around. So that makes it, I dare say, very open-minded to what compared to what the world is. I mean, I always have this conversation with a lot of people actually, and I remember speaking to someone recently about this because if I go, I want to mention the street. I'm going to mention the street name. If I go to Sesame Lane, which is one of the streets that we have here in Gibraltar, there's a Jewish shop on this side, and there's a shop run by a Muslim on the other. Okay, and then whenever I say that to someone, they're like, "What happens? Do they kill each other? Do they?" I'm like, "No, they actually get along, you know." So, and then the other side of it is Gibraltar is, well, apart from being very multicultural, and through my line of work or any other things that I've done, I've always found it to be a very personal approach when it comes to those sorts of things. I mean, we all know each other one way or another. If they don't know you, they know your family. So it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes it can be a negative, but I find it to be a positive.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, so it largely it's not that big of a country, correct?
No, that's all. I mean, it's very small, but I mean, at the same time, being very small, there's a lot to do. I mean, not just from A to B, I could, if I want to get into the main street here, I'll be there in 5, 6 minutes from my home.
Wow.
So, but I mean, it's also very close to Morocco. So if I actually look out my window right now, I can actually see Morocco on one side, and I can actually see Spain on the other.
That's wild. That's wild. So, excuse me, the Rock. What exactly is that, and how much of this? Because Gibraltar is an island, correct?
It's a peninsula,
It's
technically.
a peninsula. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
two-thirds of an island, or three-fourths of an island. So so how much of Gibraltar, of this peninsula, does the Rock occupy, and why is that the thing that everybody knows?
Well, it is our most popular attraction, I dare say. I mean, whenever you land here, or whenever you come from Spain onwards from the coastal area, it's the first thing you see as soon as you approach Gibraltar. It stands at 462 feet above sea level, which is quite high up. I mean, it takes me about 20 minutes to walk from my home to get to the very top. Obviously, the very top you can't actually reach because it's all protected by I believe it's the RAF, which is the Royal Air Force, but the rest of it, it's a walking museum. You know, you have the St. Michael's Cave, and there's the Great Siege Tunnels. There's St. Michael's Cave also acts as an auditorium, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
I mean, so many well-known artists like in the musical that performs there before. So it's always very exciting to go there. It can actually rain there in the summer too. So it's quite interesting, as like any other living stone or any limestone rather. So it's an interesting place to go because there's always something to do, and the views from the top are just phenomenal.
Hmm. Has does anybody know, I guess, can they trace back exactly how far back the Rock has existed in that form, like a carbon dating, or just they just like, yeah, it's been here forever.
I mean, from what obviously history tells us, the shape of the rock at least was from the Ice Age, like technically. But I mean, I believe the Romans also saw us. The Phoenicians were here before. Little trivia fact as well. It's not compared to the rock, I just say, but something to trace back to. The first Neanderthal skull was actually found in Gibraltar in 1848. So,
Wow.
but I mean, then obviously it was hidden away for such a long time. But there's a recent, I can't remember what it's called now for the life of me. But there's a recently on show on BBC that actually dug deep into this, and similar skulls to what they found in the south of France is what they found here back in 1848. So
Hmm.
there is a lot of anecdotes, if that makes any sense, when it comes to
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
And I'm going to jump in for a second. The Gibraltar is known in antiquity as the Pillars of Hercules, and
Correct. I was actually going to mention that. That's one thing. I was going to mention that too.
Yeah. Yep. So, and again, that's kind of cool because it does tie in, fits another requirement, our mythological
Yeah.
living mythology requirement. Yeah, which is cool. I'm glad that did come up. And as far as the so I know, like, Australia has, colonized by British colonists and prisoners, essentially, or but there's still an indigenous population. So you said it's very diverse in Gibraltar. Is there an indigenous population that is still there, or is it all just this cultural melting pot?
It's definitely a cultural melting pot, no doubt. I mean, one side of Gibraltar, for example, there's Catalan Bay, which is well, that was occupied by the Genoese, technically, which is where my mom's ancestors are from. But it's all apart from the fact it's multicultural. A lot of people seem to be able to trace the fact that maybe, obviously, Spain being within close reach, and some of them are British, some of them are Irish, but the reality is that being in a cultural pot, being around all sorts of cultures, and you embrace it a bit more, perhaps. So, but considering what the population is here, which is very small, it's grown quite a lot, which was something we've all found out recently. It's 38,000 people that live here now, which is quite a big number, for such a small place. But people want to come here all the time. I just say, I 8 years ago, I would say in a heartbeat, a lot of people would come over because there was a lot more events culturally and everything else. But overall, it is become, due to the proximity to a lot of things, it becomes a very popular place to come to.
Interesting, interesting. So are you seeing a rise in property values now because of this
Oh,
attention?
definitely. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. I
So I
mean,
kind of
it.
I missed it. I missed it. Just getting in there
I
while it was
mean,
cheap.
property is very expensive here, but obviously, if you can afford it,
Yeah.
it's everything's doable.
So it feels very much a little bit of a little like almost like a New York City vibe as far as being, multicultural, having, this one guy has a shop next to this other guy, and the only thing that they compete about are prices or, and things like that. And part of that, part and parcel of that is there is an amazing and diverse music scene in
Oh yeah.
Gibraltar.
Oh, for
And
sure.
and that is your bread and butter. That's kind of the meat of what I want to talk about because aside from being a photojournalist, you are also a music journalist and have kind of had an opportunity to interview a lot of the different bands in Gibraltar. And so kind of give us an idea of what is it, is it basically just like the stuff that we hear on top 40 or whatever culture, whatever's in the popular zeitgeist of music. Is it that? Is there pop? Is there rap? Is there jazz? Or is there a specific Gibraltar sound or Gibraltar vibe?
I mean, I think when it comes to Gibraltar music, it can be so diverse in all senses of the word, you know? I mean, I've got a friend of mine, Adrian Pizzarello, who I could recommend a lot of people to check out. I always dub him a Robert Springsteen because he can sing, he composes, and he's a very good songwriter. Speaking about a lot of things, you know, some tracks can be quite humorous. There's one about being drunk and hungover, but then there's the other side of it, you know, when it comes to drug addiction and everything else. Not because of him, but from other people. And but some songs are in Spanish, which of course also in the Spanish influence comes into play there. But he performs jazz, he performs Irish music. He's done a lot of punk stuff, you know, you name it, but he's done it. But then there's others, obviously there's reggae, a lot of reggae, I must say. And then there's Sister G, who's if you were to place her and then place, I don't know, I wouldn't say Bob Marley or Big Mountain or any of these big name reggae artists, you play them next to her, she doesn't look out of place at all. That's how good it is. At least in my mind it is. But then the signature Gibraltar sound is there. From every artist, they all use their influences. And all those influences can be reflected by the sound of their music, which I like to think. I mean, but the whole being around local music has allowed me, not even in the last 11 years, but even prior to that, I've been around it my entire life. That's the honest truth. I mean, when I talk about local music, I feel I'm very biased because I've seen a lot of people grow. I've seen a lot of others that have had the possibility of making it but haven't. One of the biggest exports, which a lot of people might know, is Albert Hammond, and Albert Hammond is synonymous all over the world for not just for his own solo career, but the things he's written. You know, he wrote One Moment in Time. He's written, what was it called? Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship, and many other well-known tracks over the years. But and his son Albert Jr. look no further, you know, what he's done with the Strokes and other things on his own. But then at present we have Simon Zumas, who just recently was in a band called King Calloway, and obviously they split up and gone their own different ways. He's actually based in Nashville, and when he was a part of this band, they actually performed on the James Corden show, which was incredible to witness. I'm obviously a Gibraltarian, as someone who's watched him grow from a very young age till the way he is now. Still writing, still composing, but wanting to make him live the dream, you know, and that's incredible for me. And I admire that about him in every sense of the word. And then everything, like when you're around it for so long, I mean, as much as I have, you know, my dad's a musician and he's a drummer. Then my uncle was a guitarist and a songwriter. So it all comes in hand, you know. It was very easy not to get into this world one way or another, whether it was writing like I do now, or it was more behind the scenes at first. I got very involved behind the scenes at Rock on the Rock, which is a very popular rock club here in Gibraltar, the only rock club, I dare say. But it is a very popular venue, like when it comes to live music, and I just got involved very much behind the scenes, and that was it. I met new people, made new friends. In a way that I just say that's the only reason I think my career has lasted that long when it comes to that sort of thing. because obviously knowing the bands, knowing the artists, especially during the pandemic, it helped a ton. Obviously, I was writing for a local newspaper at the time, but the local newspaper was asking me to write about local music every day because that was really my bread and butter, like you said before. And it helped, because it wasn't just all interviews that I was doing. I was getting to know when an album was going to be released, or if we're going to release an album. That obviously the sense of trust without sending an NDA, which is unheard of, but they trust you enough to give you this product. Okay, do you mind reviewing it? Give us your thoughts, and good publicity for them, and it's good publicity for me. So it's a win-win.
Are you presently, are you a freelance music journalist, or do you actually work for a paper?
I mean, I contribute to a local magazine, which is called Jib Insight. I mean, that's where we'll dive into it a little bit later. It's not just writing about music for them. It's all very, I want to say, community based, but obviously there's a lot of free reign in that sense where Gene, who's the editor, well, I'll dive into deep a bit more into it later, but just to be brief, when the Thank You Very Much documentary was coming out, the first thing I said to her, look, I'd love to review this and actually have it published. And the only thing she said to me was, well, if it's important to you, then it's important to me. And she allowed for it to go on. And it got published. And then from there, it actually, I don't know how it got into IMDb, but it did, so people were able to read my review of this. And for that sort of thing, it's a very goal-oriented magazine. We all work very well with each other. And that's the bonus stage, I think. And obviously it allows me the freedom to do my day-to-day job, which is being a care worker, which I absolutely love doing. But it's very, I would say, it's not demanding, it's very rewarding at the end of the day, because you get trusted to write this content, to not only write the content, but to familiarize yourself with even people that you've known maybe your entire life. That's the reality.
Nice. And so you did mention that you do come from a musical background as far as with your father and your uncle.
Yeah.
Any aspirations or attempts on your part to try your hand at music, or you just kind of always knew I'm an appreciator and not a performer in that respect?
Well, I have a friend of mine who plays in a metal band, which is called Weekends Divide by Zero. Highly recommend you guys checking them out as well. And basically, I was friends with two of the components, who's the drummer and the bassist, Tristan and Chris. And obviously, Tristan has always played the bass, and automatically, I remember just admiring him playing the bass. And my cousin Robert also plays the bass, so it came in hand. But it was more, do I want to get into a band? Do I want to do this? My dad always wanted me to play the drums as well, maybe try it out, but I just didn't have the patience. That's the honest truth. And I loved to get more. Not you're not even behind the scenes. It was more like you rightfully said. To appreciate it more when you're watching it like become a spectacle, and then to see all these bands and artists grow was an incredible feeling all around.
Nice. Now, you do have a creative outlet as well, because you also are a photojournalist. So when did you discover that you had this aptitude, knack, and enjoyment of using photography as a way to express yourself creatively? And then how did that lead to work? And exactly what type of photojournalism do you do? Is it part and parcel with your music journalism, or is that a separate thing that you pursue?
I guess it's a bit of everything. I mean, it was very. I remember my parents getting me a camera one Christmas, and once I want to say my career a bit launched a bit more, I thought, I'll just take my own pictures, and it'll be easier to take my own pictures instead of having to source others or use from other, I want to say media outlets, but other photographers and everything else, because you never know. But then I just thought, if the opportunity were to arise to take it even a step even further, I'll upgrade my camera, which is what I did. And I remember my colleague Grace, who's a very close family friend of ours, actually. Now she's passed away now. But at that time, she always said to me, like, if you want to try it out, just try it out with mine and see how it goes. And then from there, I found out that the Travolta Chronicles photographer was selling his. And I just, okay, let's find out what the fuss is about, especially about this particular brand and this particular model. I fell in love with it straight away. And from there then on, I'm like, you know what? I can actually combine my journalism with photojournalism, write the review, and apart from writing a review, I have my own pictures in that article altogether. So it came hand in hand. But I think the whole love for photography stems from my uncle. As I say, my uncle's he's won a few awards in California for his photography, so props to him. But my mum's the photographer of the family, so I think the fact that my mum always wanted to capture all these moments when we were growing up, as I say, was a bit of an inspiration behind me taking it further. And then when, aside from the photojournalism and the writing and everything else, I thought, I need to be more diverse, perhaps, if that makes any sense, right? Do weddings and celebrations, you name it, press conferences, but concert photography is really where I try to get the most out of, really, at the end of the day.
Nice. And so most of what you do, it's actually, portraits. Do you ever do any like landscape or nature photography at all? Or is that something that interests you? Or do you just like capturing people in action, living their lives in those
I
moments?
just say portrait photography in general is it can be very daunting sometimes because you don't know how people are going to take it. Especially when it comes to gigs, you know how musicians are, they make faces and expressions and they look weird, but at the same time, it's the shots that you want at the other day, but at the same time, when it comes to nature, I don't have the patience. I leave that to my cousin Robert. He's the bird photographer of the family, I dare say. So but I mean, I always like when I'm roaming around, like in Gibraltar, obviously going down the main street or going through alleyways or hills or steps that can lead to a certain interaction. I'm always capturing something, because there's something that captures my eye, whether it's sometimes in pitch darkness and they only see a light at the end of the end of the darkness, things like that, simple stuff. But at the end of the day, I want to say a monochrome lover. That's really where
Mm.
my like if I had to do something out of if I could do everything in monochrome, I would. That's the reality, but obviously you can't. But I think monochrome is the more intimate genre of photography and altogether. That's where you see everything, and I want to see expressions, and it's not even about expressions, but the feeling, and of the musician, or even not just the musician, but the particular view or anything else. It just, I want to say it's more intimate, if that makes any sense.
Cool, cool. Have you ever had an artist come up to you and be like, "Wow, that you really captured that moment for me"? Have you ever had that experience?
Yeah, actually, just a few years ago, actually, local band Jetstream actually won a songwriting competition, and it's the Wilson International Song Festival, considerably enough. And I was probably one of the few photographers there, but once the trophy was handed out to them and given to them, I was probably the only one there, and I captured that moment. And I was like, okay, great, that's really what you do it for. But then you see the other side of it when it comes to photojournalism and being diverse as much as they can be, I guess, is political stuff. When you're able to capture an election or any significant moments for the government of the day or anything else. So they've used a few of my pictures for that sort of thing, and that's when it's a celebration, and that's really what you do it for. You capture that moment, and that moment is captured forever for not just for yourself, but for those people that get elected into office or anything else.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we actually just had some elections over here earlier this week, and I always look. I always love people to get involved, to vote. I don't care which way you vote, just vote. I always say here in this country, you're voting for your right to complain. you know
Yeah, absolutely,
so
very
it's
true.
so you either get to complain about the guy you voted for or you get to complain about the guy you didn't vote for, but as long as you made your voice heard. So I think that's really cool that besides the entertainment and the music aspect of your photojournalism, you are also capturing these significant moments in your country's culture and history, and not, you know not ambulance chasing, not finding that, oh, on the police scanner, where's that
Yeah.
building on fire? Like it is good, honest work that you do, and I think that's fantastic. Really quick before we move on, um, just so it doesn't kind of get lost towards the end either, but let's take a moment. I just want to say, uh, throw out some websites and places where people can see your work.
I mean, just Instagram is enough. I think if you go to Instagram, DJZ Photography Official, that's where everything like I do is. I'll be very honest. I wasn't really keen on showcasing my work, if that makes any sense.
Huh.
I mean, you look at my page and I think I've only made like 300 and something posts, but that's out of choice. But because I used to upload all my photography in my own personal account, all the time. And then, just about 2 or 3 years ago, I thought, you know what, I need to make use of it and publish them on Flickr, make reels on Instagram, and obviously using the latest technology that's available. And that's really what you do it for. And I've made acquaintance with mostly Spanish bands, which I've always admired and I know, and I've always admired listening to the music because they come to the area and everything else. And, sometimes they share my work, they accept to collaborate on a post. And just one night, for me, it's something huge, but it might not be for others, but for me, it was. I posted a picture of this vocalist of this band I really admire from Spain, and it's got over 100 likes, and that's for me is enough, because they accepted to collaborate on the post, and just for me, that's enough. Really, that's what you do it for. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's not just likes or anything else, but you do it out of the love for music. That's the reality, and especially when it's music that you've grown up admiring, and then you get to meet them, and it's a funny story with this particular photo actually. Obviously, I went to the concert because a friend of mine who's I want to say stage director, but he's not really stage director. He's more like the money man, if that makes any sense. And I found out about this concert. I'm like, I knew one of the two of the bands already, but I knew one of them because I know the band's vocalist and I know the guitarist as well. And I'm like, okay, if I can make it, I'll just want to go and see them, even though I've seen the other two before. And I knew them. I knew they actually the road manager quite well, through a mutual friend. And I'm like, you know what? If I can actually meet this band's vocalist, that'll be happy. That'll make me happy. So send her a message, and she's like, "Look, I'll speak to him, and I'll message you in like 2 minutes." I'm like, and this is me at the front of the stage, waiting for the next band to come on. And somebody comes up to me, who's just their stage manager, stagehand, sorry, and he goes, "They're ready for you to go backstage and meet him." I'm like, "Okay, great." So I walk in and he starts speaking to me in English because he knows I'm from Gibraltar. And next thing he says to me, he goes, "Tell Dylan I said hi." There's so many Dylans in Gibraltar that I'm like thinking, who does he know that? I'm like, what Dylan are you talking about? He's like, oh, Dylan Farrow from Ellen Diesel. I'm like, oh, okay, now I know. This band Melon Diesel from Gibraltar are actually, well, now they're going around Spain again, but back in the late 90s, going on to the early 2000s, they used to tour Spain quite a lot, and they became quite famous out of it. They're probably I dare say, one of our biggest musical exports. But it was so crazy to talk to someone who I had never met, who I'd grown up admiring, talking to him about a mutual friend that we have in common, which is incredible. Which I didn't even know. If I had known, great. If I didn't, but it couldn't have gone any better. That's really the ultimate for me.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I love synchronicity. I love when things like that happen. Really quick, a couple months back, I got to meet David Duchovny, right, of the X
Yeah,
Files, and he has a sixth career now as a singer songwriter. And he's also a novelist, and he wrote a book uh called Bucky F and Dent, which it takes place in 1978 New York. It is a father and son story with the Yankees Red Sox rivalry of that time as the backdrop. And my father was a sports writer, and so he had given an interview, and somebody asked, who are some of your favorite sports writers, and he goes, oh, Phil Pepe, he's one of my, his book Winners Never Quit was like my Bible in college, right? That's what the quote says back there. So I had an opportunity to actually meet him a couple months back and just spent about 5 minutes just like talking with my dad about him, you know. So it's just it's great how certain paths, certain choices you make, certain things that you do can lead to these intersections and then these connections, and then what you find, you know, the commonalities, which I guess brings me to the commonality of how we know each other and how we led to this moment, is the fact that you and I are both very big fans of Andy Kaufman.
Yep.
And we first, I think, encountered each other probably, I think, 2009 ish is when I kind of got roped into this Andy Kaufman Lives website, internet thing, this sort of
Phenomena.
game, this phenomenon, yes, this puzzlementary, if you will. And my entry, my gateway into that, aside from again being a fan of Andy from when I was a kid, but my entry into that specific world was a Weird New Jersey article by comedian, television personality Chris Cathard about an Andy Kaufman press conference that happened in my home state of New Jersey. And that sort of led me to that website, which led me to the Twitter stuff, which again led me to you. Another person that was at that press conference, Frank Nora, a bunch of years ago, would put together these sort of group. It was Google
It's Google
Hangouts.
Hangouts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Google
that was it.
Hangouts. And then that's when we actually first interacted on camera. But I remember there's a lot going on Twitter back then, and so again, interest and vocation intersected for you. You mentioned this earlier, that you had the opportunity to see a screening of the first Andy Kaufman documentary that came out this year, called Thank You Very Much, which we had done a roundtable on a previous show. And then I was really, really lucky to be able to interview Lynn Margulies about all that.
Yeah.
And so you were able to write that review, which you said made it to IMDb, and then you were also, I guess, because of that, that led to you being able to watch the second of two thus far this year. We still got a couple months left of Andy Kaufman documentaries to come out. In the same two in the same year is awesome, is phenomenal. That one is called Andy Kaufman Is Me. As of now, that does not have distribution as far as I know, but you are, I think, the only person I know in the circle that has been able to see that movie. So I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about your thoughts on that, the differences between you felt the two documentaries. I also, but before that, so when you wrote that review for Thank You Very Much, that wound up on, picked up on IMDb, was that the first professional writing you had ever done about Andy?
Yeah. Surprisingly enough. I mean, I think it warranted it because of it, what it was. You know, obviously it won Best Documentary in Venice and everything else a few years ago, and obviously Bob Pagani went on a ramble really for 4 years until it got released that he wanted people to see this, and now I understand why. Once I watched it myself, you know, and but I think anything to do with Andy warrants a write-up or an interview, if that makes any sense, because of the phenomena that exists and this wonder and this cloud and these question marks that we still have in our minds. But when you watch both documentaries, obviously one has a budget, I dare say, the other one, Alex Braven, and to a certain extent, I dare say is more personal, which is great. I think I found it better in that sense. I think it was more just the intro alone is what blew me away to it. I mean, Andy Kaufman is me. I don't get me wrong. There is some things I liked about it, but I prefer Thank You Very Much for obvious reasons. Maybe because of the attachments or the IMDb thing, but maybe because it was more personal, perhaps. You know, it wasn't more about the phenomena towards the end. You know?
Interesting, interesting, because so all I've really been able to see as far as Andy Kaufman Is Me is some of the Tribeca Film Festival red carpet interviews, and then there's a 16-minute Q&A that was at the Tribeca Film Festival. And the one thing I was able to, the one through line from these interviews with the director and producers and editor was, this was the movie, the documentary that Andy's family, his surviving family, his brother and his sister, his daughter, right? That this was the movie that they wanted. Well, really more though, I think the siblings, because their big through line was that they wanted everyone to see the personal side of Andy, the
Yeah.
non-performer side of Andy, and that they were given 84 hours of audio footage that they were then able to sift through and use and I guess illustrate some of those audio recordings with marionettes, because they wanted to connect, you know, Andy with, you know, Andy's love of Howdy Doody, and also how Andy was a bit of a puppet master, and and so I was like, wow, that sounds like a really, really fascinating documentary. But then I thought sort of, but that's what this that's what Thank You Very Much did as well. It showed a very personal side of Andy through the people who knew him. And the big difference, I think, is the people who knew him while he was performing, while he, you know, after he had
Yeah.
graduated college, right? I think Bob Pagani being the oldest friend from that time. Whereas Andy Kaufman is me, it's folks from that knew him in high school, and then his family, you know, contributing as well. But again, I thought the most effective scene in Thank You Very Much was showing Andy and that interaction with Howdy Doody. Like, so it's
Yeah.
really interesting how the two movies say they're doing different things, but are kind of very much giving the same point of giving us a very well-rounded picture of who this enigma ultimately
Yeah.
was. And the thing that also caught me was the 84 hours of audio footage. I thought that that's what this was from, but this is a different guy who says he got the footage from Lynn, which made me think of these schisms within Andy Kaufman fandom. I mean, yeah, it is very apparent that, you know, Lynn and Bob have a different sort of approach to how they want to celebrate and honor Andy than Michael and his parents did when they were alive, and now his other sibling, and, you know, I forget her name, but, you know, that the family has a different view of what they want people to know. And I don't think that there's really any animosity there. I think there are people out there that might try to manufacture animosity. But is that something that's kind of a really long walk to get to the sort of, is that what you felt from watching the two movies, as far as these are two sets of people trying to get their view of a guy that nobody ever really knew that well across, and it doesn't answer anything, but it just adds to the picture?
Yeah. Just to some degree, I agree. I think it's more trying to outdo one another,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense. And I think, to their credit, I'm not saying it because she's a friend of ours, but to her credit and to Bob's credit, Lynn and Bob have carried the torch better, if that makes any sense. I mean, obviously the books and information, and it's not even about information, but to keep his legacy alive, you know, the merchandise. I remember Lynn manufactured these DVDs very early on with some footage that is, well, nowadays it's quite rare, but no, it was quite rare at the time. Now it's more accessible.
And just
But
to clarify, you're talking specifically about Bob Zamuda, but I think both
yeah,
Bob Zamuda and Bob
yeah,
again
I'm Pagani,
have
yeah.
really, yeah. But yes, Bob again being Tony Clifton for however many years, you know, and hopefully continuing to be so. So yeah, no, they definitely carried the torch. I think Michael, all respect to him for trying to do it. Um, he's not Andy. and the attempts that he has made in the last 15 or so years were very sloppy. He got the attention. He got the CNN sound bites and the appearances on the news and things like that, but it wasn't, you could see through it. You could see there was something up his sleeve.
Yeah, and if not, nothing is cool. See what I did there?
I set you up for that.
But the thing is, I think whatever truths both sides have, we'll never know the truth.
Mhm.
That's the reality. But if one of them, I want to say, knows the truth, the other one is like, I don't know, it looks like you're behind a cage and you're just hunting the animal with the meat, and then you just didn't give them the meat. That's pretty much what I feel is it looks like. But at the same time, any conspiracy to do with Andy, or any, I want to say, mystery, or any mysteries rather, they're going to take to the grave. I think it's one of those that will never know the truth. And if our love for one day I switch on the TV and then that we find out the truth, I'd love for that to happen. I know it's not going to, but I'd love for it to happen. But I mean, there's been so many, I just say, missed opportunities if it were to be true for it to be revealed. I think I would have, and I spoke to this with Kurt, just it's in a very big level, where I would have loved for it to have been at the last Letterman, for example, on CBS, and many other things. Saturday Night Live did the 40th, they just recently did the 50th. All any other sort of events or scenarios. I mean, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. He could have been there too, but who's to say he wasn't? So,
got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that same
yeah.
year. I like that a lot of these things happen on quote unquote off years, right? Because it was always like, oh, it's going to be a round number, or of the 15th anniversary of his passing, or the 20th anniversary, it was, or 1999, right? For 15 years for Man of the Moon thing, so all of that stuff is great, that there's always that anticipation around the because we are very weirdly obsessed with that cleanness of an anniversary, right? A 10-year, a 15,
Yeah.
a 20, but I love that the year before the 40th anniversary were the Walk of Fame and the WWF, right? I think that those were the 2024, or I'm sorry, 2023. And then 2024 with 40th anniversary, he would have been 75 last year. And then this is the year 2 documentaries come out, and that he's in the conversation again. And I think that that's part of why I never want to know the answer, why I don't want that mystery to be solved, because it is a vessel, right? The enigma of Andy being alive is the vessel by which people discover his work. And I think if there was ever a reveal, if that punchline was ever told, the interest wouldn't be there. I think it's the mystery that pulls you in. I think that that's the beauty of that kayfabe, and that people will, like with Lynn, I told her this. I said, you are really good about being definitive, but then kicking that door open just a little bit in what you say. And she plays the game, I think, better than anybody else right now. And I think that the thing with the family is that now at this point, the family stance is he is no longer with us, and so let's celebrate and honor the man, and yet try to kind of cut out people that have been carrying that torch for a while. Yet the director of Andy Kaufman Is Me, every interview I saw with him and in the Q&A, he cites I'm From Hollywood as being one of the first things that he discovered of Andy in the internet age, right? And yet doesn't say who put that movie together, so that schism, I think, in some respects also kind of adds to that, because then you're like, oh, now I want to find out about these characters. I don't really have a question there, but it's just really just my thoughts on that. So yeah, as far as do I want to be alive? I would love for him to be alive. Like Howard Stern said, it would be the greatest bit ever. Do I want to know the truth? I don't think so, because that means that the game's over.
Yeah.
This way, it still remains the song that never ends. That's my take on it.
I think the reality is if he is out there, God knows if he is, but if he is, I guess. I think it's like having a very a closed door that's been closed for decades, and then you find the key all of a sudden, and then, like you rightfully said, if the punchline is that he is out there, and then that we do find out the truth, okay. But who would take it and say, "Oh my God," you know? But the reality is, it's like you say. I think only hardcore fans will understand what a big deal it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I also think that one way or another, regardless whether he comes out or he comes back, his legacy is going to be, we'll love it or hate it. I mean, I've got a love and hate relationship with the Man on the Moon, as I say. But Man on the Moon, as I say, is what really kicks this all off in every sense of the word, apart from I'm for Hollywood and everything else. It's all been like one thing after the other, you know. Even though I want to say I would have loved Man on the Moon to have started and focused more on the life than anything else, and obviously everything that he went through. But also, yeah, I understand that Sandy Kaufman didn't want it to be all the negative side. It was more about Andy Kaufman, the performance artist. It was about him, Andy Kaufman, the human being. That's really what I didn't like.
Yeah, no, I get it. And again, it is very much the Hollywoodization of his life. I mean, again, how they just rearrange everything for dramatic effect. But again, I think it's a good. I also think that that's a good entry point. That helped people discover his actual work and his art.
Yeah.
You know,
Case in point.
right.
Happened to me.
I was gonna ask, like, what was your entry into it? So yeah, clearly it was the movie was your.
Well, it was actually before that. I mean, I was in the States late 98 going on to 99. And I'm from Hollywood. It was maybe the last 10, 15 minutes on Comedy Central, because I remember it was on Comedy Central all the time from what I hear. Like literally all the time. And that was it. You know, I just remember being fascinated because Jerry Lawler was on it, being a huge wrestling fan. So, but I didn't really know much about it. And then obviously once I flew back home and after a few days, I just Googled, or no, not really Googled, Yahoo searched Andy Kaufman, and that was it, you know.
Nice.
And that's when I found out the JVNet site that had a Q&A on it and a few other things as well.
Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left. I see Frank is here. Hercules, if you want to let Frank into the conversation, and we'll kind of get his thoughts. I can't hear you, Hercules. Oh, he's trying to figure it out. Okay. Meanwhile, while he's trying to get Frank, I always like to say, I think the one of three outcomes for whether, Andy's alive or not. And I would like to think, okay, he faked it. He pulled it off. He got away with it. And then, like, 2 years later, he's walking across the street without a care in the world, and he got creamed by a bus. And no one would ever know. The other option is that he did get away with it. He did it, and he is just content with living quietly, sitting back and watching everybody play this game. And doesn't even have to get involved. Just is very appreciative of the fact that people are playing this game. Well, that's interesting that the Tony Clifton picture fell as I was talking about that. The third option is that he faked it, and he is still with us and is really doing the performance of a lifetime as our current president in this country.
Who knows?
Yeah, right. That would be the reveal. That would be the fun reveal. So I think we got Frank. Frank, you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello, Frank.
Can't
Hello.
see you.
My camera should be on. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes, how's it going?
It's good, man. Thanks for taking some time out of your plans this evening to join us for the end. So David and I were talking a little bit about the Andy Kaufman Is Me documentary versus the Thank You Very Much documentary. I guess do you have any questions for David, Frank, as far as his thoughts on the documentary, or what you want to know, or anything you want to know specifically right now about those two things?
Well,
Those
David,
two
it's,
docs.
it's great to see you. And it brings me back to those early days in 2008, 2009,
Oh yeah.
our online community of all the people that were investigating this Andy Kaufman Lives matter. And I think that that community and that whole phenomenon was something that was so cool. And on my channel, I've archived so many shows where we were talking about it. It was such a specific moment in history. What were your thoughts about that? Especially the people that we got to know all around the world that were into this.
I think more than anything, that's what amazed me the most. That it was people from all corners of the world, really. I mean, now obviously we got a mirror in Australia, and then back then there was a lot of people in the UK, I believe, as well. Um, John Lundberg, we could go on about for a very long time talking
I
about.
still don't think he's a real guy.
I don't know. He was one of the, yeah, he was friends with Banksy and supposedly in with the, intelligence community. This
MK
is where
Ultra stuff. Yeah.
The MK Ultra, yeah. So it was wild, yeah.
It was a wild ride, let's put it that way.
Remember that one hangout where he his screen was always black. Lundberg's screen was always black whenever he would pop on, sort of like you, Frank. It was really interesting, but I think it was more intentional. And
It's
that
an
again,
homage, John.
it's an homage here.
I'm trying to get my screen on. I can't get
it. So we got just about 6 or just a little over 5 minutes left. But yeah, Frank, you are absolutely right. That is one of the greatest thing, no matter what the circumstances were that led us all on this path. I mean, clearly, obviously it was Andy. Above and beyond anyone who was doing anything, it was Andy that brought us all together. And I think the fact that that we're having this conversation now, that we're doing this, we're still talking about Andy, but we're also just connecting as human beings and people across the world. I think that's just the coolest thing about this entire carnival, this tent that we're under.
It shows that someone can continue to have a huge influence after they're gone, whether or not, we don't know if Andy is really gone or not, but even if he did really die in 84, everything that he did left behind such a legacy and continues to inspire and fascinate and confound people. And, I found that as well with one of my favorite broadcasters, Gene Shepard, who inspired me to do my show and has really someone I never met and someone who died in 1999. But his old shows had a huge impact on my life. And I think people don't think as much about how they can impact the future. I think many people just feel like what I'm doing today, I want to get the benefit today. But with our ability to record things, like with Andy, it's all stuff that's on video and on film, right? For us, we can right now doing a podcast and we can have a huge impact on the future. And it's something that I think more people should think about.
You brought up a great point there about Gene Shepard, because I think also like Andy, a lot of people know things that have been inspired by Andy before they know Andy. So many people have been influenced by Gene Shepard because of that movie, A Christmas Story, but have no idea who Gene Shepard is. And I think that that's a really great comparison that you put out there. I thought that's really apt.
And anyone who has heard of Christmas Story but has never heard his radio show, go over to the Internet Archive, look up Gene Shepard. That's JeanShepHerd, and you will now be able to listen to thousands of hours of his shows. And it is a complete universe unto itself. And as I said, it totally changed my life.
Yeah, he was something special. My dad loved him, and that's what brought us to see that movie. And that, it's a thing that we always had, that just that love of Gene Shepherd is fantastic.
I mean, wasn't it Jenna Cobbett that said all roads lead to Kaufman?
Oh, he absolutely, absolutely. And it'll be interesting. I'm sure there's got to be a one-to-one connection somewhere with Gene Shepherd and Andy, and we just have yet to find it. And for those who want to read the book for A Christmas Story, it has one of the best titles. It's In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash.
Yes, and we had that in our house and growing up. My father had that. Yeah, I always remember seeing that book on the shelf.
Nice. So we're gonna start to wrap it up here. Frank, thank you so much for joining. Again, taking time out of your plans tonight. I know you're watching a little bit of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think it's very fitting that we were doing the Gibraltar Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And David, thank you so much for carving this time out of your schedule to do this. I've wanted to talk with you for a long time. I was a little intimidated actually interviewing a journalist. I hope I did okay.
You did well. You did well.
You are such a great guy. I love that you are a care worker. I think that is some of the greatest, most honest work that somebody could do. My best to you, your wonderful family, your colleagues, the bands that you love and are friends with, and to the rest of the 38,000 people in Gibraltar. Thank you again for spending this time with us. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure to do it, John, and at least we got there in the end.
So really quick again, once again, David, if people want to read your work, you said you have your Instagram, you want to give that a shout out?
Yeah, just follow GJG Photography Official and just take it from there.
Very good. Frank, you have, as always, your Overnightscape Underground. I know you have something going on tomorrow. Really quick in the minute we have left, or 30 seconds we have left, how can people watch your stuff?
It's at onsug.com, ONSUG.com.
Awesome. Yeah, check it out. Like I've always said, Frank Nora has been doing podcasting before podcasting was even a thing. You want to find hundreds of thousands of hours of content, you go to onsug.com. Folks, this has been the Pep Talk. I remain John Carl Pepe. You can always find me at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. David, you ever come down to New Jersey and you come down to Fair Lawn, you come to the shop. I'll hook you up with some good comic books and toys.
I'll tell my son about it.
Very good. You can also catch me here on the Mount Olympus Podcast Network every month at the top of the month with the Pep Talk, as well as our Pop Culture Pantheon show that I do with Hercules and Paul Dale Roberts, which has been a blast, and I can't wait to have some more conversations with you guys. Hercules, as always, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other. Go watch some Andy Kaufman clips on YouTube because it is just the greatest thing ever. This guy will never be forgotten as long as he remains dead. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for an entertaining and very instructional and amusing show. I enjoyed listening to all of you, and to those who are listening at home, until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night, everybody.